And every Tuesday I support an organization or a cause, and this week we're supporting Project X. And if you're not in Singapore and you would like to support your own local community, the local cause, um, I encourage you to do that. And if you want to just support yourself, that is totally okay as well. This is a complimentary class. So just a little bit about Project X. They are supporting the sex workers work in Singapore because, ironically, prostitution is a legal industry in Singapore. But at the same time, there are many women who come here to work, and they are not legal because of many other issues, because of syndicates, because of regulations, because of deportations, because of many other things. And that causes them to be really marginalized here, and they suffer from a lot of trauma and abuse, and they have very few places to go to. And Project X provide them with shelter, social support, legal advice, as well as HIV testing. They are run by women, of course. They are an amazing organization, just really progressive, and I really see them as exemplary people for building this society. So just going on to today's theme, this week we are exploring finding our center. And I know the fitness industry is kind of obsessed with the core. And core, everybody's saying that, oh yeah, core is, at first it was like, it's about the abs, then they say, oh no, the core is also about lumbar pelvic stability. Oh no, but the core is also the transverse abdominals. No, the core is also the psoas. So there's so many talk about what the core is. But what from my own research and my own studies and my own experience, I mean, I have never ever have a six-pack in my life. just something that never happened to me, no matter how hard I work. And I realized that when we look at core, it's really about a process, and it's not really a place or a muscle or a group of muscle. And in the work of somatics and in yoga, we're always looking at relational being. We're always looking at relationship. So this yoga, or this union of being relational, it is actually being in the center. Being in the center to be a container that can hold opposing views, opposing thoughts, that we can actually see. We can see darkness and light not as polarities and not as opposites, but to see that one does not exist without the other. And that process of coming back into seeing this unity, seeing how everything in life is relational and is cyclical, and how we are all connected, individually, as a society, and also as a collective. So this is a process of core itself, because it's always coming back to who are we, why are we here, like exploring what are we made of. So this is the week's topic, and so I do 3 public sessions a week. So Tuesday is I go more into the yoga side of things, so we work with more yoga asanas, and I will throw in some Sanskrit words here and there, more in the yoga therapy side of things. And then on Thursday, I do an embodied anatomy class in which we will explore more about this week's theme. So this week we will really look at what does it mean by finding our center. We'll delve more into embryology. And then on Saturday, I offer a somatic movement class, which is more free-form, non-linear movements. Okay, so today we're going to get into practice quite soon, but before that, I always like to use some visual reference, and this is one of my favorite, and I think some of you who have been coming for the Tuesday class has been seeing this ball. I call this the breathing ball. Okay, so when we look at any processes, or when we look at any type of relationship, we actually need to look at it from all perspectives. And if we're just looking at it from just through the body and using the body as an anchor to uncover this relationship, we can look at the breath, right? So we often think of the breath as, oh yeah, we're breathing. Or somebody tells you to take a deep breath and we go, and we take a deep breath. And those of you who teach yoga, which I know there are some of you here who are yoga teachers, we know that, breathing or pranayama is not, it's not just about just this momentarily reminder of like, okay, we have to breathe. No, but we actually is exploring the breath across all dimensions. So the breath has a front and a back, and the breath it expands to the sides, and the breath also moves up and down. But before we actually develop a diaphragm, where do we get the nourishment from? The nourishment comes from when we are in-utero, is through the umbilical, the attachment to a greater source, which is our mother. So movement actually began even before we develop a nervous system. We actually don't develop a nervous system. We don't have a spinal column. We didn't have a spinal cord when we were an embryo. But movement, the language of movement has already begun. Okay. So when we look at movement, that there is intrinsic movement, which is what is actually happening in the body, and there is extrinsic movement, as in how we are then relating to the space around us. So the first form of extrinsic movement in utero is when we become, so it goes, if we just look at the landmark of our navel, so you can place your hands just on your belly button and just kind of take a moment to go bring one hand to the front of your navel and one hand to the back. And then just take a moment to just maybe sense into the space that's in the center between the front and the back. And then from here, if you superimpose the breathing ball and just sense how it moves from this point in the center, front and back, side to side, as well as up and down. Okay, there's a front and a back. There's a side to side, and there is an up and down. And so it moves through this way. It expands and then it condenses. It expands and it condenses. And the Chinese also call it the dantian. As in, this is the source of nourishment. This is the source where we connect and we are a part of something, a force that is greater than us, the order of nature. Okay. And then I just want to talk about one more thing, and then we'll really get into practice here. So in this, if we're looking at this source that pulsates and moving from this process, this of the center, then where is our limbs? So our limbs, we think that our limbs ends here, kind of just here, right? If you're looking at medical books, the limbs ends here, and then it ends here. But if you're looking at the source and the core, the limbs ends right here, right here, right here, right here, front and back, side to side, top and bottom. And the head is also a limb. The tail is also a limb. Our sense organs, our eyes, our ears, our tongue, our mouth, all contribute to a part of the limb because movement begins right here. Okay? Don't worry if it sounds all a little bit esoteric. This is an experiential class, so let's see how much we can get into the embodiment part of it. Okay? So I'd like you to just, make sure you have a pair of socks and something that is quite weighty, so it can be a water bottle that is filled, or a dumbbell, or anything that is this is about 1 kilo. Okay? And then when you're ready, let's come to sitting, and we'll do a short embodied meditation to just get into this center, and then we'll start to move from the intrinsic to the extrinsic. Everybody hearing me all right? So give me a thumbs up. Okay, and you're all muted. Great. Okay. So when you're ready, just make sure you're seated on something that is comfortable. And as I have mentioned in many of the prior classes, make sure you're not weight bearing on your tail, because once you weight bear on your tail, especially in this class, that's your limb, you don't want to weight bear on your tail because then your head is locked. So make sure you're on your sitting bones. Okay. And I'd like you to take the Hakini Mudra, which is taking the fingertips together and join them just lightly together, and place them just in front of your navel. Yes, close your eyes, or have your eyes downcast. Just take a moment here to settle into your seat. Just feel how gravity is receiving your weight. What's your relationship with gravity now? Are you holding yourself up with any resistance, any tension? How heavy does your head feel? How grounded are you? And begin to tune into your breath. Just notice the movement of your breath. Maybe you like to superimpose the breathing ball to the space behind the navel. Just notice its movement from the center, expanding outwards, frontwards, backwards, upwards, downwards, and then condensing and anchoring back to the center. And with this awareness, notice if your breath is becoming a little bit slower and less forceful, so there is no need to try and force or adjust your breath. But just notice what is coming, what is arising. And feeling into the space between your fingertips. So as you inhale, just notice if the pressure between the fingers, if it's lightening or if it gets heavier. And if there's a pulsation that's also happening between the fingertips. And I'd like you to just visualize one limb at a time. The next time you exhale, just anchor your awareness back to the space behind your navel. And then as you inhale, draw the breath from your navel into your arms, all the way to the fingertips. So you can sense the fingertips lightening. And then as you exhale, let the breath travel back from the fingertips to the arms, back to the space behind you. Just repeat this, allowing breath to travel from navel to fingertips, and then back to the navel. And then one more round, one more cycle of breath. As you inhale, feel the expansion from the navel out through to the fingertips. And then the exhale brings you back to the center. And then let your mind rest now. Just notice if your arms are a little bit bigger or longer. And then the next time you exhale, once again, let your awareness settle back to the space behind the navel. And then as you inhale, bring your awareness from behind the navel all the way up through the midline to the crown of your head. And then as you exhale, bring it back to the center. 2 more rounds from the navel all the way up towards the head. And then exhale, moving back to the center. And one more time. Next breath in, passing through the chest, up the throat, all the way to the crown of the head. And then back. Again, letting your brain just rest for a moment. Notice if your upper torso, the upper limbs of your arms, all the way up towards your head, through the midline of the body, you feel a little bit more spacious, a little bit more whole. Just take your hands and rest on your knees or your thighs so that your shoulders can relax. a little bit more. Sense into the support of the upper body. Through this awareness, from the intrinsic awareness to space and gravity, these extrinsic forces supporting you. Next time you exhale, once again bring the focus back to the space behind the navel. And then as you inhale, expand your breath down to your pelvic floor and all the way to your legs. The right leg, the left leg. See if you can travel all the way to your toes. And then as you exhale, bring it back to the center. For 2 more rounds of breath, sending your awareness and your breath all the way down the pelvic floor into the 2 lower limbs. Anchoring back to the center. And 1 more breath. All the way out into the peripheral limbs, all the way to the toes, to the soles of your feet. Bringing it back. And rest your awareness. Noticing the support that's coming through your legs. Do 1 more limb, which is all the way down towards the tail. So when you're ready, use the exhale to anchor the awareness back behind your navel. And then as you inhale, send the breath all the way down to the pelvic floor again, all the way towards the tail, the base of the spine. Anchoring back as you exhale. Drawing in breath all the way to the perineum. Anchoring back, condensing into the point behind the navel. 1 more breath, all the way down to the base support of the pelvic floor, to the tail, to the perineum, maybe even to your pubic bone. And then centering it back towards the center, back towards the core. Where is the core now? Where is your source? Just allowing your breath to move through the whole body naturally. Just notice how much space are you taking up from the inside to the skin, to beyond your skin. And then as you bring yourself back to the navel center, can you still hold that space that you're taking, that you're existing? And then slowly open your eyes and let's come on to your hands and knees. Take your time. And as you come onto your hands and knees, I'd like you to just take a moment here. Don't be in a hurry. There's no rush here. And I'd like you to just stay where you feel is the center. So you're in the quadruped position. Hands touching the floor, knees touching the floor. Can you find the space behind the navel? Between the front and the back body, between the 2 sides, between top and the bottom, the center of the center. And then as you draw in the next breath, allow that center to expand and move into the 6 limbs as you come into the cow pose. And then as you exhale, anchoring back, finding and looking within into this navel center, just beneath that. And then move through a few more cycles. Feel how you can extend from the navel center all the way into the 6 limbs, the 3 limbs, is the arms and the head, 3 upper limbs, and then to the 3 lower limbs, which is the 2 legs and the tail. We do 3 more rounds. So take your time on this, take as much time as you need. So allow the movement to come from the intrinsic rhythm. And then the next time you exhale, come back to the center and feel where center is for you now and how that center is supporting you and holding you through this 2 opposing rhythm of expansion and condensing. And then I'd like you to just take your right arm towards the front and reach forward just a little. Okay. And as you reach forward, I want you to sense if you can find the root of the right arm all the way towards the navel center. And then come back. Then switch over to the other side. Take the left arm. And just feel how the other 5 limbs organizes in order to keep you balanced as you reach the left hand, left arm all the way towards the ether. Sense how it roots back to the navel center and then come back. Then take the right leg all the way back as well. See if you can organize yourself back towards the center and then come back. Take the left leg all the way back and notice how the weight shifts into the other limbs and then come back. Now move your limb, the head of your limb forward as if the crown of your head wants to reach forward into something. And then back to the center. And then move your tail back. And then come back to the center. Now, once again, settle back in tabletop position. And then we're going to play with some combination. You're going to take your right arm forward and take the left leg back. And feel how you can expand into space and still root back to the center. And this is a moment-to-moment practice from the intrinsic to the extrinsic. Taking one more cycle of breath. And then the next time you exhale, just bring it all the way back to the navel. And repeat again. 3 more cycles, expand. As you expand, notice if you can still anchor back. And then when you anchor back, see if you can still feel the space that you have taken up. So you're expanding out, but still anchoring back. And when you anchor back, you do not lose that spaciousness. And then the next time you come back and bring it back to the center. And then take your left arm forward and then begin to slide your right leg back as well, sideways. And then as you expand out into the ether, find the navel center, and then the next time you exhale, draw it back to the center. And then move through a few cycles, expanding and condensing. And then the next time you exhale, come back to the center. Okay. And begin to just take your hands slightly more forward. And then as you inhale, you bring your chest forward, extend your head forward as if you're coming into an up dog. And then as you exhale, cycle back towards the tail. And just move through a few cycles here. Once again, 3 more. From the navel center, expand and extend. And then as you exhale, condense and anchor. And reach back towards the tail. Into one more round. Good. And then I'd like you to, let's play with a little bit with the breath. Now I want you to do the opposite. As you inhale, I'd like you to move back and extend towards your tail. Then as you exhale, bring it forward towards the head. See if you can still find the navel center here. Inhale to move back. And then exhale to move forward. And how is that different? How is that quality different? How is this experience different? And then the next time you inhale, move all the way back into child's pose. See if you can find your tail long, reaching all the way back. And then as you exhale, find your navel center, bring your forehead down towards the floor. And rest here. Just letting your breath pulsate and move you from within. Bring the breath moving all the way to your extremities, into skin. And I'd like you to come back onto your hands and knees again. And then we'll play a little bit more here before we come up into standing. So, do you know that it's a very complex process for a baby to go to be born and then to learn how to roll and then learn how to come onto their hands and knees and how to crawl and then learn how to walk. So we'll explore a small fraction of that process. Okay. So as you come onto your hands and knees, I'd like you to just take your weight off your left hand and then bring it back. And then take your weight off your right hand and bring it back. So the key thing as you're doing this, I want you to feel how then the rest of the body organizes itself. Okay, and just bring your awareness back to also if the baby is still has an umbilical cord, how would the baby move? Baby doesn't really know that it has lost its umbilical cord. It takes a while for baby to build a self-image. Okay, and then begin to just lift your right knee out and lift your left knee up as well. Just notice how that changes the shape of your spine as well. And how does the head and the tail organizes itself? Okay, and then try to take both side one, left hand, left knee off, right hand and right knee off, left hand, left knee off, and right hand and right knee off. And notice again, do you feel one side of the spine condensing and drawing back to the center of your navel, and then the other side happens. So there is kind of this movement, lateral movement of the spine here, where it keeps drawing back to the navel. And then what happens now if you were to just take the right hand and left knee away, and then left hand and right knee away? And maybe you can just move forward a little, and then move back a little. Go forward a few steps, and then move back a few steps. So here I'd like you to feel how there's this lateral movement, even though it's the opposite contralateral movement is happening. Right? There is a lateral movement of your spine, and the head and the tail follows as you crawl. Okay, and then just sit and just shake out your hands a little. So you're going to come back onto your hands and knees, and then you're going to curl your toes under and shift your weight side to side again. Now as you start to bring your toes under, start to take your knees up and move forward and backwards a few times. See if you can allow the head and the tail to organize around the hands and the knees, and the center of the movement comes from just behind the navel. So you're not carrying too much weight on the head, the tail is not tucked, and there is freedom in the way you move. And then when you're ready, you're going to just come into downward facing dog. Okay, still keeping your knees bent. Keep your feet relatively wide so that your tail can be free. And just allow the weight of your head to soften a little bit more. And now if you want to, you can pat your legs out. You can bend one knee at a time and straighten the other leg. So this is often in yoga is called walking the dog. But can you find that the extension of one side condenses the other side back towards the navel? So the center of the navel is always supporting these movements, and the head and the tail is also participating. So even if you're just walking the dog, you're not just doing a bicycle, but you are finding that curl side to side.
So if you have a dog at home, you can channel your inner dog. Okay. Good. And then bring your knees back down and come back to sit. Let's take a moment, shake out your wrists and your hands. I like to do this counter stretch for my wrists. It's just to take the hands underneath the knees and then just stretch it back a little. Is everybody doing okay? So far following? Great. Okay, we're going to get a little bit more exciting. So for the super yogis out there who loves to do vinyasas, we're going to do a few vinyasa. Okay? If at any point the wrists don't like what you're doing, don't worry about it. You can always do the same movement on another plane. So if this plank thing is not happening for your wrist or your shoulders is not happening, or you feel there's a lot of tension in your jaw or your neck, then you can always just come back and do this. Or you can come back on your hands and knees instead of being on your feet. Okay? So, just going to go a bit further away. Okay, let's go through a few vinyasas. I think chaturanga is a shoulder shredder, and most of us are women here, so our pelvic floor is I don't really want to do a pelvic floor contraction too much here. I like to tone the pelvic floor, so I'm going to skip chaturanga. No chaturanga, okay? So you're going to come into down dog here. Find the center of the center between the top and the bottom, front and back, side to side. You can just play around with it a little. Okay, find that buoyancy, and then you're going to come through to plank, move it up, into up dog, roll back, into down dog, knees bend, come through, forward, and just cycle through this about 5 rounds if that's available for you. Okay, and this is not just an exercise, it's not just fitness conditioning, but I'd like you to find that center of the navel that is expanding and opening you up, and then that brings you back relationally back to your core, back to the source behind the navel center. You can do this or with your knees bent, or really knees on the floor if that's more available for you. Yeah. And just notice how the head is also a part of the limb. And if you can bring the awareness to the head as a part of the limb, can you also see the eyes, the ears, the senses are also coming from the gut, from the navel. So we trust our senses more, we trust less of our frontal lobe. Great, and then the next time you come back to downward facing dog, stay in down dog, you can have your knees bend. It's no need to have straight legs down dog. In fact, I like the bend knee version because it gives me a lot more mobility options as to how I want to transition. You take your right leg up and extend from the navel. And then as you exhale, curve back into the navel and do that a few times. This is a very familiar vinyasa move. Move through that maybe 3 or 4 rounds. And just once again sense into how that intrinsic movement leads into extrinsic movement across space. And then switch sides, try the left side. elbow and supinate. Good. And every time you draw back, find that anchor. And when you finish the next one, come back to down dog. If you need to take a break, take a break. If you're still okay on your hands, stay there for one more round of play here. You're going to take your right leg up, cross over, cross behind you, and then reach up, go back, take your left leg up, cross behind you, and reach up. So we are in an asymmetrical form. Let's see if you can still find that center to expand, condense, and right, and then last one, right leg up, bring it to the center, move it over to the left side, and then expand, come back, center, left leg up, cross the midline, over, expand, kind of like a fallen angel pose. So these are all the usual yoga, vinyasa yoga poses that you do, but do it with another intention. Do it from the sense of where the navel center is, and just notice if there's a difference in the quality. Okay. Nice, and then come back. Okay, sit back again and just shake out your hands or just stretch out your wrists. Everybody okay? Okay. Good. All right. So usually I don't generally go on the hands that much, but I just feel like since we're working with the core, so let's get a little bit more dynamic. Okay. So now I'm going to get you to stand up. This is the time. Put the fish islands. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? I'd like you to put your socks on. And you're going to just take your yoga mat away. So you're going to practice this on the floor instead of on your yoga mat because your yoga mat is too sticky. And we want to slide. And then take your water bottle. Just place it in front of your navel. Use just one hand or both hands to hold it first. Just take a moment to recollect your center. Now that we're on a different relationship with gravity. Okay, so we're in a vertical relationship now, which is a biped relationship. We're the only mammals walking on Earth on 2 feet. So our center is quite different from most of the other mammals. And while evolution has propelled us into walking on 2 feet because our brain is more important. We want to engage with the world more. So our sense of center is then a lot more compromised because we're letting our soft belly be exposed. This is the most vulnerable part of our body.
which is why our nervous system always causes us to go into this response, okay, or center response. So how do we be on 2 feet and still feel centered, tall? We can take up space, but at the same time we feel grounded. Okay. So with the water bottle in the center, and I can just shift your weight side to side. So you're wearing socks to just give you a little bit more feedback on where your feet are. Okay, and see if you can bring the sense of your feet, your toes, all the way back up your pelvis, all the way back up to the navel center. Feel how as you shift your weight side to side, it all organizes itself around here. And then begin to shift your water bottle from one hand to the other. Good. And then just let the movement get bigger. And then maybe you can just slide your legs around. Imagine you are skating. And notice how that center how it's always changing and moving. So just take a little time to just play a little. And what the socks do and what this weight does is that it gives you a sense of where your limbs end. It tells you where it ends. But then if you feel any tension or pressure or that is going out of your joints, then notice, can you bring it back? Bring it back to the center. Maybe you can play a little bit with balance. What happens if you were to take your feet wider? What if you try to play a little bit more and maybe bring your weight underneath your legs? Go behind you. Do you still, when it's behind you, we don't have eyes at the back, but can we still have a sense of our back body? What if you were to find your way onto the floor and come back up? How many ways can you move to the floor and come back up? With your hands free, pretty much. Your hands are still negotiating the weight in the body. So you are multitasking, you are changing your relationship with gravity, while still having your hands occupied and knowing where you are in space, and you're not so dependent just on the eyes or on your distal limbs, but you have a center. Okay, and then just come back to stand. Take the ball on the navel or the water bottle. Shoulders relax. Let the breath settle back to the source, the point behind the navel. And take the water bottle or the ball onto the right hand and feel how there's a balance, there's a change in the balance now. The right arm is going to feel heavier. And then notice how does that change the organization of your feet, maybe even your tail, your midline, your head. Okay. And then just take the right arm up and then go into a side stretch. So do that really slowly so that you move from here. You can bring one hand to this navel and just use that as a feedback. How can this distal weight be supported all the way from the navel? And switch sides. Do you completely lose the footing here? Do you collapse all your weight onto just your left foot? Can you still somehow organize that right foot back to the navel center? And then come back up. And let's take warrior 2. We're soft on. So you don't want to go too far. Okay, so you can find just so now you have to really bring it back to the center because you have soft on. You have to find that little bit of resistance here. And then take the hand, the weight on your right hand. Feel how much more weight there is on this side, maybe even onto the right side of your face, the right side of your ear, the right side of your jaw, and how do you find your center here? Can you stay safe if you were to go into a reverse warrior? How far do you go? Where do your limbs end? Where do they begin? Come back to center. Aha, triangle. It'll be fun. And then come back and switch sides. Just turn the left foot out, right foot in. Find the right distance for you so that you can root your legs, your tail back behind the navel center. Sense into the breath process. 4. Into an asymmetrical shape. How does the front and the back, the sides, the two sides, the top and the bottom half of the body support itself? Space and gravity, these bigger forces. And then back to center and triangle. Beautiful, and come back. Send both your feet. How about let's do goddess pose. So let the feet turn out a little bit, let the knees track. Okay, and then see if it's possible to really hold your dantian, hold your center here. And then really reach the ball up. Find your umbilical center, embryological center, the center of your being where there is no thought. It's just magic. And then heel toe, heel toe, heel toe, heel toe, and then come all the way to the spot. You okay? Alright. Now lie down on your back. You're welcoming respite.
You can take your socks off.
And I'd like you to just go into go into fetal position on your right. You can pick your right arm as a pillow. Go into fetal position on your right. And then as you exhale, draw that exhale right back to the source. And then as you inhale, expand and open up onto your back. And then as you exhale, you're going to curve over to the other side on your left into the fetal position. And then just do that a few times, opening it up like a starfish with 6 wings. So drawing in, condensing, entering, and then opening up to the world, engaging presence, and drawing back in. Just enjoy the support of the ground. So let the bigger forces support you through the center of your being. Good. And then the next time you go over to your right, begin to let your left arm move across the midline. So you're in a spinal twist. So the upper limbs, the left arm, the head goes towards the left, the lower limbs are on the right. And then switch over, curve into the left side, and open up the right upper limbs, including the head over to the right. And then come back to the center and draw everything in. And then release everything into the support of gravity held here in space. Like the breath, its intrinsic movement is dynamic and still.
holding this container of your being, the knowledge of your place in this world. Allowing the power of surrender to just support this body. Support your agency. So begin to deepen your breath. Bring your awareness back to the center of the center between the front and the back body, center between the left and the right side, the center between the top and the bottom. Just allow this source, this anchor point to pulsate. Life force supporting you. You can begin to move the distal parts of your body, perhaps the fingers, the toes.
Roll your head side to side. Just sense how this movements of the distal bodies, the distal limbs, can ripple back and echo back to the center of your being. Into that wholeness. I'd like to slide your legs closer together and slowly stretch your arms over your head. Taking a deep breath, you expand from that center out into the ether. Connect with everyone in this room, virtually, across continents, time zones. Then curve back into a fetal position on your side. Take your time to find and organize yourself back into a vertical relationship with space and gravity. Once you are settled back into your seat, just bring your hands into Hakini Mudra once again and place it in front of your navel. Just taking a few breaths, you're letting the intrinsic movement pulsate through. Feel, where do you begin, where do you end? And then the next inhale, just take your arms all the way out to the side, into space, reach it towards the sky, and then palms back to the midline. Let it descend, drawing you back, bring it all towards the heart center. And take a bow, head to heart and heart to navel, and to all the teachers and the teachers before us. Thank you.